Prop makers. We had quite an emotional goodbye. The mothers in the family bear quite a burden. And then we left on planes. October 2009, we flew into southern Afghanistan. So the terrain, think biblical times, with machine guns and motorcycles. It was quite archaic, a lot of stone walls. They would farm by hand. They were an agriculture society. And when I got there, they were growing corn, cotton, and marijuana. And then during the deployment, they had a full poppy harvest. And so the way we operated was 3 squads. So we would take a compound. One squad would set posts and watch over. One squad would patrol the region, and one squad would rest. The squad on rest was generally a quick reaction force. They had to help. So there was usually no rest. And so we pushed into the valley with packs on. And the first thing I saw, we went in the night and we started building. In the morning, when the sun came up, everyone was leaving. There were cars filled with everything. All the people were leaving. I remember thinking, oh fuck, this is about to go down. And it did. For the next month, we engaged with the enemy almost every single day. This was with gunfights and rockets. The way that we would engage the enemy would be these rolling firefights. We would be out on patrol and we would get ambushed. It was constant ambushing. We would engage the enemy. They would engage us with machine guns. And then we would usually gain fire superiority. We had better gear. And when that happened, they would pick their stuff up, bound, run back. We would chase them, and then they would attack us from another position. And this was constant. It was a rolling firefight. It was a 360 battlefield, and we were fighting constantly. We very rarely saw bodies. So they would get rid of their bodies real quick. It's a guerrilla warfare tactic. Psychological. I remember one time we did get a body, and it was real interesting. Hermie had a close-up kill, and they brought him back to the compound. I remember I was standing around him, and this was my first real close encounter with death. The thing I just remember is the smell. The smell of this. And it wasn't just, the body was only there for maybe 4 or 5 hours, but the smell of it lingered for like 3 days. Every time I would walk past this space, I would smell this. And we continued to fight. And there was one point during all this fighting, and it was constant, where at night, I put myself in my bag, and my whole body, chest collapsed, and I just thinking, I'm gonna die here. There's no way I'm making it out of here. My breath just got so shallow, the paranoia set in. So fast forward to November 22nd. It's the day that's seared in my mind. I was on post. My friend walked by, they were patrolling, and the Taliban set a horrific ambush. This was a bigger one than normal. And they just started pounding, and my fire was cut off. I had to watch this from a post. I just remember hearing over the radio, we got 2 Marines hit, we got 2 Marines hit. And then it got real quiet. A voice came over, fallen angel. A Marine that I had been very close with for years and years and years had been shot in the head. They brought the body back. I remember we're all standing around the body. His brain starts coming out. I remember just walking up, picking it up and putting it right back in his head. And then I went, nope. And it was at that point that I had completely shut off my emotion. My emotion was gone. It just overload, complete overload. It was that humanity was just leaving. And the interesting part about war is there's no time to grieve. Grieving's a human process. It's pretty important. When you're in combat, there's no time for it. The next day, the Taliban attacked us again. This is November 23rd. They tried to overrun our compound. Remember, I grabbed a machine gun and I ran up to the wall and I started shooting at them. Bah! And my fire was too high. Someone came and slammed into my back and I got on target and I started blasting away. Doing what Marines do. They got up and ran. So, Lieutenant looked at Todd. He said, Todd, you gotta go after him. Todd was a squad leader. I'm like, fuck. So we went after him after they just attacked us. And we met up with them in a village called Mobican. By a wall. Todd's team went first, and Thomas's team went second. When Thomas's team went, they lit us up. I had my machine gun and grenades, and we just started blasting into them. And then it all stopped. We picked up, and we got out of Mobican. And on Todd's award, her squad got awarded with 6 confirmed kills in Mobican. I think about that a lot because it's a good feeling to do your job like that. You're doing something horrible. It's one of those. Fast forward a little bit on the deployment, and we took a bazaar, so a market, a big operation. We took it uncontested. And this essentially cut off the Taliban's movement of firearms. And so it was just like a faucet, and the gunfire turned off. And when that happened, they planted bombs everywhere. The entire world turned into one open minefield. Everywhere you stepped, this potential boom. The guy beneath me blew up. The guy above me blew up. Everyone around me. The battalion commander blew up. It was just the tactic they used. They would mix ammonium nitrate and aluminum and put it in these cans and fill them with rocks and glass, whatever metal they could find, to tear you apart. And when the gunfire stopped, we got into the Afghani culture. This was a unique culture. Tell a little story. I kicked down a door. We were looking for ammonium nitrate. We were searching everywhere, high and low, searching for ammonium nitrate everywhere you could look. Kicked down a door. And there was a baby in the middle of the room. And I remember thinking, this would be a good place to hide something. And I walk in, and I look around the baby, there's nothing. So I start searching the room. I got my knife. And a woman came running in, screaming. She grabbed the baby. And I saw her face. She ran out, and I didn't think anything of it. I went back to searching. I said, nothing. I walk out of the room, and I walk into the courtyard, and a man had the woman by the wrist, and he was hitting her left and right, beating her. And I look over at my staff sergeant like, we gonna do something? And he said, nah, we can't fuck with their culture. Do not mess with it. And that was kind of the theme. It was a culture that they used force. They essentially had all the women enslaved. It looked like you would walk down the road and they would look like this. They would cut off little girls' parts so they didn't feel pleasure. And then the little girls would be sold off like cattle breeding. It wasn't any better for the little boys. They were used for sexual pleasure. You'd see them get on the back of motorcycles and you'd just know what's happening. And then they would grow a beard, and as soon as they grow a beard, they're fighting. So they're fighting really young. And I would have been like 12 if I was fighting in that culture. Think of the 12-year-olds you know. They weren't all bad though. People would come up and try to give us money. I always thought this was unique because they thought we were the new Taliban. They were just simple farmers and they were just trying to go about their business. Do I pay you off or do I pay them off? So I'm trying to think of anything that we did that was good in this country. What good happens? And there's something I'm actually quite proud of. I did. We were down way south, wild south, front lines, super dangerous place. We were all trained, we knew exactly what was going on. And they brought in a team to work with us. It was a team of Marines. It was a Lioness team. It was interesting because all the Marines were female. We weren't allowed to talk to them. But the mission was very clear. It was to administer health care to Afghani women. I didn't have access to it. This is a very, very dangerous mission. These women were incredibly brave. Come down with us. We couldn't go out during the day, so we had to take them out at night. And my squad held security. All these Marines went in and did the job just like Marines do. I'm going to talk about March 26th now. This was towards the end of the deployment. Todd was our squad leader. He was the man. He led us through hell. And March 25th rolls around. He said, George, take the night off, or take tomorrow morning off. I said, absolutely I will. That sounds marvelous. I'm just going on shore patrol. I'll take some Afghani soldiers with us and just a team. So fast forward to March 26th, and I wake up to an explosion. Big boom. And it was close. I just knew it. Jolted up, threw on my gear, and sprinted. And what I saw when I got to the scene, it was Todd. And he had 4 tourniquets on him. And so I knew my job. I walked up, pulled down his pants, gave a quick check. All good. Let's work. And right around that time, the Navy corpsman showed up, which is a medic. I gave him a tracheotomy on the spot. So what I saw was he had stepped on a bomb. He had a piece of skin holding his foot on, the bone out. This foot was gone with the bone coming out. Both his hands were gone. And with the bone coming out, they looked like banana peels. And he had shrapnel going all throughout his body. And then a piece lodged up in there. And the piece lodged up in there was holding his jaw shut. And that was muffling the screams. And that was chilling. The corpsman showed up and just cracked him, boom. And the screaming stopped. And then we carried him onto the bird. We carried him onto the helicopter. I rode on the helicopter with him. And when we were on the bird, we got off, he was dead. And then something happened. I just had this thought. I was like, that dude ain't gonna die. He's a tough bastard. Well, I kept him alive. The doctors did a miraculous job. They saved him. He became the second living quad amputee. Right after that, I hitchhiked back down to my guys. It's easier than you think. And when I got back to my squad, I'd been away from them for 2 days. I had never felt so much love as I did in Afghanistan. It was crazy. It was so good to be back with them. Felt like something was missing. And one day, we left Afghanistan. Poof. I had 6 months left on my contract in the Marine Corps. I spent the whole time blacked out drunk. And then I went home to Massachusetts. I think this was scarier than war. In war, I knew what I was up against. I got home, I was so confused. I was confused all the time. I was confused about everything. Couldn't understand why people acted the way they acted. I couldn't control my emotions. I couldn't regulate anything. My thoughts. I was really scared. And so I did the only logical thing. I self-medicated. I became an amateur psychiatrist, and I took whatever I thought I needed, just so I know what I could feel. That makes sense. If there's no regulation going on, you take something, at least you know that you're feeling that. I spent about 6 years in a passive suicide. This is very scary. Come home, there's no purpose, don't know what to do. There's nothing to do. So I traveled the country doing manual labor, odd jobs, tried college, failed miserably. So it started spiraling. I started feeling worse and worse. I couldn't articulate this to anybody, and I couldn't explain it. The spiral got worse and worse until I was essentially dependent, living in my parents' basement. And then I had a psychotic episode. It all came to fruition one night, and I ended up locked up in the VA psych ward. It's actually not a bad place. Got a nice bed and food. So here I kind of had that, oh shit moment. I'm really here? How did it get to this? And it was a little moment of self-awareness. At that point I decided I wanted to get better. You gotta make the decision. I dove into every kind of therapy I could find. It was all top down. All talk therapy. He was talking, talk. Every single module, just run through them. There was something missing. There was a component missing. And then one night, I had another episode. And it wasn't nearly as severe as the other one, but I was just fortunate enough to have the episode in front of the right person. That person said, "George, you go into this program." And I said, "Okay." I went to the focus program. For the first time since Afghanistan, they hooked me up back with that Marine Corps honor, courage, commitment. It got me feeling really, really good about myself again. The first time in almost a decade. And that's when I decided to go to a yoga studio. And then I went back the next day. And I started feeling really good. I couldn't really describe it. And then I had a friend I said, I want to study this a little bit more. And a friend guided me and said, hey, I know this place. She brought me to the Himalayan Institute. I started studying more about yoga, more about the body and why I was feeling that way. And I started doing asana movement, yoga. I started breathing. With the breath work, I was able to regulate my emotion better. I wasn't flying off the handle all the time. And then I started twisting. It's like the trauma started coming out of me. It's like it would do the movement, it would bubble up. I started getting body work done constantly. And there's amazing body work. It's like push the trauma out of me. I would have these flashbacks. And then there were not enough people to talk about it with, so just putting it all together, I started feeling really, really good. And I learned how to teach it. I started feeling good. When I started feeling good, I started playing with the kids at the Institute. And that's how I ended up at the Cooperage. I want to say that. I work with the children here. So I learned how to teach this technique. I wanted to bring it back. So brought it. Started bringing it to the Focus program. Teaching this to Marines as they go through the program. Essentially what I do is they go through all these different modules, talking through different issues, and I help them with breath work and simple breath practices and movement to help the emotional regulation while they go through it. And it seems to work really well when the bottom up meets the top down. And I'm gonna finish up here. A couple of things. The first thing I want to talk about is masculinity. I'm hearing a tremendous amount of chatter all over about toxic masculinity. And through my work, I'm starting to understand what I think it is. And what that is it's a bunch of sad boys that have never healed. And the way I'm starting to deal with this is to meet that with compassion. Understand that. It takes away all that uncomfortableness. Lots of hugging. The last thing I want to say is I feel so privileged. I feel so privileged and grateful to be an American. There's this thing about privilege. It can look really icky if it's not combined with responsibility. Eugene Sledge, I think, said it the best. With privilege comes responsibility. If the country is good enough to live in, it's good enough to fight for. Thank you. Thanks for coming, everyone. What's going on? Any questions?
I got a question, George.
Go, Brian.
You're a good man, by the way.
Thank you.
Anybody work with you for a second? You brought your, what is it, platoon, what would you call that?
Squad.
You brought your squad to Himalayan Institute. These guys, we were nervous. They had huge arms on them. They were massive. And they were pussycats by the time it was over. But my question is, what did they think when you first told them you were practicing yoga?
Oh, I got a lot of flack. It wasn't flack necessarily. But yeah, I got made fun of quite a bit. And what happened was,
Use your mic.
I got made fun of a little bit. And what happened was I started feeling good, and they started looking at me, and they're like, oh, no, no, no. It's actually, it was through example. And then once they started to see me doing it, they're like, yeah, what are you doing? And then they kind of all started doing it. They dig it.
What's the program that you work with now?
The
Is that
pro-
Focus?
Yes, it's called the Focus Marine Foundation. We take about 20 people, usually Marines, sometimes Army, from all over the country, bring them together. We throw a week-long program 4 times a year. Mhm.
So do you think you'd ever go back to combat?
Do I? Like right now?
Like in the future, do you think you would ever see yourself return, you know?
No, absolutely not. No, 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 those days are over. I'm trying to take the path of the elder warrior now. And that's kind of helping the younger guys.
Using what you know and have been practicing now.
I can't hear you.
Using what you know and have been practicing now through yoga, breathwork, meditation, do you think that would have made a difference in your experience going in, or the experience of anyone else going in? Or do you still not think that people would be able to process it and it's more of a post experience as you come back to the world?
That's an interesting question. I think that would be based on your job in the military. So my job was to be reactive. It wasn't to be discerning. The older special forces guys, I think, would be wonderful. But some of the younger guys, maybe not. But warfare is always changing, so you know, it's something that's constantly evolving.
Do you have problems sleeping now, or how do you cope with that day to day? Like, I'm already having problems just hearing about it.
You sleep drastically better with the practice. I was on sleep meds for almost a decade. And the first place I slept safely was at the Institute. It was like the first place that I could let my guard down and start sleeping again.
Who was your friend that first brought you to HI?
Tammy Blatt. Tammy Blatt, I'll tell you a little bit. So her son was in my fire team. And he got blown up by an IED. He's okay, he didn't get seriously injured, but it obviously affected Tammy like crazy. And she found the Institute while we were in Afghanistan. So then, you know, she never shut up about it. I was like, okay, hold on.
Isn't there like a veterans yoga project or something like that now?
Yeah.
But that's different from Focus?
Oh yeah. There's 46,000 veteran nonprofits out there.
Okay.
Tell me about Todd. How is he doing today?
Okay, so Todd, now he has a son. He's married, and he's working at the program. And what he does in the program is he's teaching victim responsibility. So he gets up there and he basically helps Marines get out of the victim mentality. It's very powerful. He speaks too.
If a young person came to you and, you know, showed interest in joining the military, would you encourage that? Do you know what I mean? Like, or say no, don't do it, you know?
It would really depend on the situation. Yeah, that's a tricky one.
I know.
But there's some young people who I think would flourish in the
Who
military.
would do well with it.
Yeah,
right?
but- Sorry, you can't really push it down and tell them that.
Hey, George, what would your advice be to somebody, if you have a loved one that's suffering PTSD, going through this, and how to get them help? Do you have advice for family to help encourage, how can we encourage our men and our lives to get the help that they need like you did?
Well, that's a tough one. So
Probably
don't-
no one answer, right, but.
No, it's so different. That's the tough one, because you can't like push someone towards it, because you just push them away. That's what I've found. That's why it works for me, because I'm just I try to be a living example, that's it. Let me think about that a little bit more.
You gotta want the help.
Yeah,
Well, the Veterans Yoga Project has free classes online. If they were interested in yoga, they could at least do a free class with other vets online.
You're pretty extraordinary though, because you have the intention and the willpower to pull you into that, right? I mean, that's something you try to inspire in others.
okay, so here's what they teach a lot too. I have a enormous leg up on most vets, is I have these two parents. So we get into a lot of focus, is a lot of early childhood stuff. And so I didn't have to go through all that. And then on top of the PTSD, I just had to deal with the PTSD from combat, which put me in a different position than most.
Yay to your parents.
George, with this experience that you've had, how do you see the world differently than you did before? How do you view the world now that you've gone through that? You must be, it's a whole different like class. Because you said when you came back that you had a very hard time dealing with people, but now
It
you,
was a different dimension. I had to learn how to basically, like from the beginning, relearn everything, how to interact with society. I'm still learning that. That's like the hardest part. It's because you're there, everything's so black and white, so black and white, and then you leave there and everything's all gray. It's so confusing. Just trying to figure it out.
in progress, that.
It's work in progress.
I would see you meditating in the shrine and I go, wow, he can, because you like to move around a lot. And there you were, very still and very calm from everything you went through. And you were in the shrine with this beautiful aura doing your meditation.
So George, what do you do with memories that come up?
It's not so bad anymore. I'll tell you a little one. I was up in Mocha, and they had a chocolate fountain, and I had a flashback. I saw the tracheotomy. I had repressed it, and that was like, I saw it, and I stopped for a minute, and then I had enough awareness now. You know what I mean? I took a couple breaths. I was like, okay, I'm here. Like that's nothing. But I know it's just gonna keep happening. Stuff will keep coming up.
So you're breathing your way through it?
Just like that.
Do you have a sixth sense of home now?
Hmm?
Do you have a sixth sense of home now?
Just think the earth is my home now. I got I like it everywhere. Good.
So I just wonder, like, if you happened to witness some kind of you know, violence out in the world, just, you know, in a city, you know, someone robbing something or whatever, like if you would witness that, do you think you would react and like try to help?
Oh, yeah, 100%. There's nothing you can do about it. Those programs don't go away, and the survival ones are the deepest ones. So that,
I just have a statement, really, George. You mentioned coming to the Himalayan Institute and how it's changed you.
I can't quite hear you.
You mentioned coming to the Himalayan Institute and how it changed you. I want you to know that it's, at least for me, my privilege to know that you're around and have become part of our community, and you've changed at least me, and I'm sure everybody around us, in a whole unique way. It's a privilege, really, to know you and for you to share this story.
thank you.
And thank you.
All right, we're going out now?
Yeah.